Hey guys, welcome back to another Leadfeeder webinar. Super excited to have somebody on today that I do quite a lot of work behind the scenes with, and somebody actually a trusted advisor of mine for all things social media related. Big fan of his TikTok profile, you know. but while we're waiting just for people to come on, Alex, how are you doing, mate?
I am good for what time is it? 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon in a very cold southwest London.
I know the feel. So I'm sitting in Vienna, Austria. I've been looking out the window at the snow bucketing down all day long. And I'm 1 hour ahead of you here, mate. So I'm closer to beer o'clock than you are, unfortunately for you.
What are you doing in
But
Austria?
what am I doing in Austria? I love, my friend. Love.
Ah, very
So
good.
I married an Austrian. I've been based in Austria now for 12 years. So
You learn something new every day, don't
there
you?
you are, mate. Did you? So how long have we been talking now? Over a year, and you did not know I'm based in Austria. So there you go. Yeah, I've been based. Little fun fact. I'm probably the only Irishman in Austria that's fluent in German. So there you go.
How does that work as an accent?
Yeah, man. It works. Not well, but it works. It works. So yeah, we're coming up to close to 100 people on now. So I think we can get started just in the interest of everybody's time. Just a couple of housekeeping things, guys, just before we get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to just drop something into the Q&A tab. Or please feel free to just have a little word in the chat. Guys, tell us where you're from, by the way. Pop into the chat to say where you're from. And yeah, it'd be great to see everybody there. So just while everybody's Belgium, Chicago, Munich, Virginia,
Nottingham,
Nottingham, Germany, Belgium, Slovakia, Finland,
Canada,
London. Look at us
international baby.
all over the world. Snowy Newcastle, Swansea, on the far corners of the earth. Look at that.
Brazil,
Fantastic.
Brazil, North Carolina, Spain, India, hi Ganesh,
Belgium
Snowmageddon,
again. Excellent.
freezing in Liverpool.
Excellent.
Texas, Florida, go away, sunny Florida. No, don't, please stay. Maidstone,
Brilliant.
Kent.
Great to see so many people on from all over the world. It's really great to have such an international audience. So with that, let's get started. So what are we going to be talking today? We're going to be talking about the future of social selling. And as I mentioned, myself and Alex, we go back a little bit of time now. Although he didn't know one of the core things about me that I'm based in Vienna, Austria. We've known each other for quite a while now. That just goes to show how things are here with lockdown and different things. But yeah, so Alex is somebody that is my go-to guy for anything social media related. So I'm really excited to see what Alex is going to present to us today. But he's going to be focusing on one topic that we have been talking about more and more recently is the future social selling. So I think since the pandemic, generally things have changed. I think there's new platforms available. One of them being Clubhouse, for example, which myself and Alex are also active on, which is a crazy platform, but there's so many people using it right now as well, which is interesting. LinkedIn has changed massively over the past year, and I think Alex is going to focus mainly on LinkedIn for this, but we'll also touch a little bit later on around the future and where we're going to next. But just a bit of background on myself and Alex. I'm the CMO of Leadfeeder. I think a lot of people have been following our webinars throughout the past year or so probably be familiar with myself and what Leadfeeder do, so I won't focus too much on us. But from Alex's side, Alex is like a social media expert, professional services lead over at DLA Ignite. And as I said, Alex is the go-to guy when it comes to anything social media related, right? So if I need anything from LinkedIn, or if I need to know something about the algorithm or what's happening on the ground or understanding what's the next big thing, Alex is the guy that I'm going to go to. That is 100% certain. In terms of Clubhouse, for example, he was the one who pinged us in another Slack group when myself and a guy, Michael Hansen, there a couple of weeks ago saying, hey guys, are you on Clubhouse? We didn't even know what Clubhouse was. So he rides the wave of social media trends, let's say, and he's at the top of that wave. So
What's up, dude?
yeah, man. So really, really pleased to have you on again, Alex. It's actually been a bit longer since we've done the last webinar together, I guess, right?
Yeah, last summer I think when the pandemic first kicked in, it was me, you, and Declan, and then you got me on and yeah, yeah. So too long, but here we are. That's the important thing with all these lovely people who are here to hear me talk, not you talk.
And with that, I'll move on. But just to give some background in terms of some of the stuff that we will be talking about and what we were talking about and led to this. So Alex sent me across a blog post that was put together recently by Seth Mars, who's an analyst over at Forrester. And it was just around how people are using digital signals in order to like really get into their sales process. So that also comes from the likes of social media. So some of the things in this particular report that Forrester did was we've seen the 62% of B2B buyers now actually go and select whatever tech they're going to use based on things that they can find online, essentially, right? Now, going forward into the future, as we're more in this digital world anyway, based on everything that's happening in the world around us, and based on what's happened over the past year, I think it is forcing people to transform digitally, but it's also making sure that we're able to use the technology that's available to us. And within that technology is a lot of data, right? So I think a lot of people don't know what type of data they have at their fingertips nowadays. And it doesn't have to cost you something. I think when people in the past started talking about things like intent data, so understanding the intent for somebody to purchase something based on many data points, based on customer interactions, for example, or prospect interactions, or search intent, what people are looking at online, etc., etc. That paired with other things like if they're following you on LinkedIn, or they're following your company on LinkedIn, or if they've liked LinkedIn posts, all of these different bits and pieces, pairing that together is not as difficult as it used to be, and it's certainly not as expensive as it used to be. But some of the findings from this report was showing that, the thing is you should monitor intent data, as I just mentioned, and then taking those intent signals. So are they looking to purchase a solution like yours? And then actually taking that information, being like, okay, I want to jump on that information, obviously, as a salesperson. And then taking that then into your sales process and being like, okay, what is the stuff that they're actually been looking at, or what have they been interested in? And then actually using that in your outreach then afterwards. So like this is just to sort of set the scene a little bit for what Alex is going to be touching on a little bit later. First of all, he's going to get into the actionable insights, something that we like to provide here at the Leadfeeder webinars, right? And he's going to take a deep dive into LinkedIn, show you what works, what doesn't work, how you should put your best foot forward in terms of creating your presence on LinkedIn. And then after that, he's going to get into the future in terms of using that data in order to get the next step and create those opportunities from what's going on in the world around us. So before I hand it over to Alex, if you have any questions, please, as I said, throw it into the Q&A or put it into the chat. If you have any comments, please put it into the chat. I see some people raising their hands here. So Michael, I see you just raise your hand. If you have something that you'd like to ask, please throw it into the chat. I'll stop Alex at any point in case there are any questions that come up. But as Alex said, like everybody's here to listen to you speak, Alex, and not me. So I'll hand it over to you, mate, and I'll let you start sharing your screen.
Yeah, and then we go there, and then we go, yeah, and then we go, yeah. Right, let's rock and roll. Let's do this. So, bit of context. If you're not following Simon Kemp on LinkedIn, I'll show his profile in a minute. You need to do this because he shares the digital Bible every quarter. So there are reports that's just come out now. This is a deep dive across all social media platforms by country, by demographic. You're now at 4.2 billion people on social. Close to 5 billion people can access the internet. So if you're not thinking about building social and digital into your go-to-market strategy, like right now, you may as well give up and go home. To that point around Forrester, that you are basically going to be invisible versus those that are out there and active. LinkedIn's latest stats, we are now at nearly 740 million members. So again, the biggest B2B social media platform on the planet. And will they get to 1 billion this year? I don't know. They might get to 900 million people, people think. And again, for those of you that don't know this, it is owned by Microsoft. So Microsoft own LinkedIn, and it's fascinating looking at how Microsoft is now building LinkedIn into its entire ecosystem. So whether you're on Outlook or Gmail, go into the App Store and download the LinkedIn widget and put it into your email, so that when people email you, if their email address matches their login address, a little version of their LinkedIn profile will pop up, how you're connected. So it can start to really drive that side of things. Anybody that follows me knows that I actually don't like the term social selling. I feel it's lost all sense of what it originally was intended to mean by when Timothy Hughes wrote the book Social Selling and Influencers and Change Makers way back when. You don't sell over social. And I know that there probably some of you, I'm going to call you out, are guilty of doing this. Send a connection request, pitch. I now start replying to people going, what's the pitch? And they still pitch me. The whole point of social selling is how do you use social to start a conversation? Bring a conversation offline, out of the social digital world into this environment, and then you move into your sales process. So yes, whilst we're looking at LinkedIn as a platform, the rules of engagement remain the same for any social media platform on the planet, including Clubhouse. It's just you need to be where your audience is. Your audience will tell you where you need to be. I talk about fish in the fish ponds. So if you understand what fish you want to go fishing for and then what ponds they're in, that will then dictate the platform that you use. But we're talking about LinkedIn today. So social selling is built up around three main pillars, which remain true. Your personal brand. So when somebody meets you for the first time online, are they meeting just another salesperson, AE, SDR, lawyer, accountant, whomever, or are they actually meeting a human being? Your network. And you need to think of your network not as a LinkedIn network, not as an address book of my first degree connections and my mates. You got to think about it as a referral network. We all know that a referral is the best route into a conversation. So how are you leveraging that? And then the final piece is around content. Content. Without content, you're nothing. But then your content needs to have context. Then as we'll talk about that in terms of moving forward, where is this all going? Matthew, in terms of that, just go into G Suite or the Microsoft App Store and just type in LinkedIn. I think just type in LinkedIn email, and the Chrome extension should come up. If not, someone behind the scenes will be looking for it and chuck the thing into the chat.
Just one thing, just on that, Alex. So Matthew just mentioned that in a question here in the chat, guys. Just to show you something here, when you do put a question in, can you address it to panelists and attendees? There's a little drop-down menu there. Click panelists and attendees. That we only got as the panelist here. And the question was, what is the name of the app that you mentioned for Gmail to show you the LinkedIn profile of the sender? So what I'll do is I'll get somebody in the background here, Alex, to go and find that app and post it. Do you know the name of it?
Yeah, it's all good. It's in the Chrome store, and then if you want Gmail, it's in the Microsoft store. So your profile is not written as a CV. You are talking to your next client, not your next job. Doesn't matter what industry you are in. So there's some basic things that we need to consider. Think of it as a website. That's what you need to think about. Good banner image up here. Debate as to what that looks like and what you should do. I have mine because it refers to your digital Magellan around guiding, but bear in mind that you want to make sure you're using this left quadrant here. The left or right? No, right quadrant as I'm looking at it, because when you're in mobile, your profile picture comes into the middle. So any text, mobile numbers, websites needs to be on this side. Good up-to-date corporate profile photo, kind of speaks for itself. You'll notice a little speaker here. This is a 10-second audio clip. We've seen how audio is blowing up in terms of Clubhouse. We want to hear the voice, so you can record a 10-second audio clip through the mobile app to do this, to introduce yourself. Thanks for visiting my profile. Hope you'll look at everything that you found, be happy to connect, or introduce what you do. Then the headline. It was never meant to be your job title. We're obsessed with forcing hierarchy on our clients. Your clients don't care. If you look at the research out there that we don't want to talk to salespeople apparently, or the buyers don't want to talk to salespeople. There was a Gartner piece yesterday, and if you saw it, where their research says that 1 in 3 buyers now do not want to engage with the salesperson at all during the sales process. What you want to do is describe what it is that you do. So if I were to pick up the phone to any of your clients, how would you describe to me, or how would they describe to me what it is that you do for them? That's what we need to think about. Then the about section. The about section is your story. This can be played very many different ways. I segue into the Magellan story, but you could talk about your journey to who you are. You could talk. It's not a CV. It's not written in the way that is me. It's around, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. Because we can't meet in these virtual environments, think about what else can I put in there which might help people connect to me as a person and a human being. So I've got a little bit about what I do outside of the day job. So I'm a parent. I like barbecue, skiing, sailing, and mountain biking. So people can look at that and go, "Oh, I enjoy skiing." No one's going skiing in Europe at the moment. Or I enjoy barbecue, or just a little bit of, that's something else about Alex other than the day job. It could be if you're passionate about charity work, if you're passionate about mental health, Black Lives Matters, if you are sitting on a board of anything, football teams, sports teams, just to try to create that bit of that human connection, if you will. Then invite people to connect. Let's have a conversation. If you want to learn more, let's connect. Then the featured section is a great way to promote content. So work with your marketing teams and promote webinars, promote podcasts, promote articles that you've written. Think about the value that you want to be driving towards when someone lands on your profile. Is not, I'm here to sell you something. It's, I'm here to help you solve a problem. Then we come down to the experience section. So the experience section is, this is the what I do. So think about, this is what I do. This is how I can help you. Problem solution. The SDRs, AEs on the call, for example. Think about your discovery calls. Think about the types of questions that you're always asked. We'll play those questions back. Do you ever think? Have you thought? Is this what you questioned? Then follow that with the answer. This is what our product service solution does. This is how I can help you. What you want to also think about is how you use words. So if you just say I, when someone is reading your profile, you're just talking to yourself. You're talking about yourself. If you use the word you, we, this kind of language, then when they're reading it, 740 million people on LinkedIn, but they're on your profile, they're having a one-to-one conversation with you. So think about how you use the word you and we mixed in with I. Just build your profile out as much as you can. Education is important because education then starts, oh, I went to the same college, university, what have you, as did this person. Especially if you have Sales Navigator, it's really important in terms of helping that map across an account. Licenses, certifications, any training programs that you've done, chuck it all in there, add it in there, make the profile as rich as you are able. I've had people reach out to me and they've looked at this in terms of yeah, I know, Radley, great school. Abingdon, second-rate school. Chris, I do feel sorry for you. But with regards to this, I've had people picking up on the fact, hey, where did he learn to ski? So it's something else outside of that. Then your skills. Skills are searchable. Endorsements, don't worry about the endorsements because that's then, how many people have endorsed you for what you do, unless you're using the recruiter tool to then find a job. But even then, I don't believe there's much value behind the number. But the skill itself is searchable within LinkedIn as a platform. So you can have up to 50 skills in your profile. And again, it's not a skill as a salesperson. It's a skill in terms of the industry that I sell into, market into, the skill that I do in terms of the problem that I solve from an advisory perspective, if that makes sense. So think about it in terms of skills around skills of industry and this. Lauren, I'm going to read it. What do you reckon I think of a new way of describing yourself? Magellan's exploration areas like... just heads up, Lauren. Thanks. Yep. First impressions, right? He also died before he made it around the world. So this is the thing, right? You create a first impression. You learn something. You learn something new. I may think of it. I may not. I'm going to take that on board. But this is an interesting point in terms of it's a difficult time in social media at the moment. Fair comment though. Totally fair shout. And everybody's allowed to have a view. That's the beauty of social media. Then what we need to think about is recommendations. So recommendations, not that you'll get your mate to think about recommending you, your clients. This is where you get the 5-star, 4-star Amazon recommendation. I use my profile as a pitch CV. Go and look at the bottom of the people I've worked with, go and talk to them, have a conversation about what it is that I and we do for clients. So use this as a really powerful way to expose what it is that you do in terms of that thing. So that's what we need to think about. You of course need to be connected to the individual in order to ask that recommendation. I'd always ask them first, so email or phone call. Based on the work we've done, would you mind providing me a recommendation? Then we need to think about
Alex, I'll just stop you there for 1 sec, mate.
Yep.
Because you've flown through a lot of things there, and I just have a couple of questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much time are you putting into your link to keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date? Like, how often are you going in and making changes there?
Well, if there's a major change in something technical that's happening, then probably, well, no, every 3 months probably I play around with it. So
Okay.
it probably takes half an hour to an hour. If you haven't updated your profile in a while, then you're going to need to spend half an hour to do it, to invest in it. But that's
What?
time well spent in my view. Once it's done, then it's obviously, keeping this change takes no time at all. That takes 2 seconds, the featured section. Updating, if there's any updates and changes within what you're doing or product updates, that takes no time at all. Recommendations, to one a quarter,
Okay.
to a
Is there
year.
any trigger? Is there any trigger that you see? Does an algorithm change or something with LinkedIn trigger you to do it, or is it just
No,
your
not,
point of view
not,
changing it?
not unless they're going to tell me how they're changing search and SEO, because
They're
fundamentally,
not. Which they're
everything,
not.
yeah, everything in your profile, is searchable. Then with regards to that, it's no, your profile is the anchor point from which you do everything. I follow people on LinkedIn. I've never read their profile in my life because I don't have to, because of the content they engage with. However, what we do know is that people do due diligence on you. They want to start to understand a little bit more. And because we can't go to conferences, because we can't network in terms of all of this, when the LinkedIn profile is that person that meets at a conference, right? I've got a question and a thing. Loads of people in the past saying jumping ship to likes of WhatsApp to Signal. Well, they've delayed that. So Facebook have delayed that privacy change coming out. Do you think, what do you reckon? Would you recommend being uber transparent about the tools we use to help them address pains and not spying as many? I'm not. Only talk about what you can in the public domain that we talk about in the public domain. So I wouldn't share kind of your own IP, etc., etc. If you're using any automation tools, then that's a big no-no on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is clamping down on that in terms of auto connectors. But from that perspective, I do. This conversation kind of frustrates me, and I don't want to get sidetracked on it. Read the terms of business. Read the terms of business of every social media platform that you sign up to, and then take it from there. If you want to pay for WhatsApp, then we have to then change things. If you want to pay for LinkedIn, if you want to pay for Facebook,
Yeah.
so whatever you put in the public domain, put what you're allowed to put in the public domain. So don't put client conversation stuff that you can't talk about. And I get asked this question by lawyers. I do a lot of work with law firms, and I'm pretty sure you act for all these organizations and you've written their terms of business for them and taken money for that. So that's my take on it.
I agree with you there around the data point, Alex. I think it's as long as these platforms are for free to the user, you're going to have to give up your data.
Yeah.
I think unless, and we've had this conversation a couple of weeks ago when I actually approached you about the WhatsApp thing with Facebook and got your opinion on it. And it was, are you willing to pay for a WhatsApp type service? I would say yes, personally, I'd be willing to pay, but I guess I'm not in the majority.
No.
I guess the majority would not be willing to pay. Would you be willing to pay to use all the sites that you're on in the internet? I think it's interesting. I think the majority answer, if you were to get a large enough data set and ask that question to, I think people would not be willing to pay for Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, etc. There's been another question here from Ian. Hi Alex, the audio open on individual profiles. Is it only available on desktop? I don't see it on mobile.
You can edit. So if I'm looking at the mobile app, I click on my picture top left as I'm looking at next to the search bar. You then click on view profile. Then what you should see is you'll have your banner image, then the grey pencil next to the LinkedIn logo. If you then click on the grey pencil, you then should have your audio recording, and then you can click on the pencil there, and then you can record the 10 seconds onto the mobile device. Then that will appear on the app. I believe that's now everybody should have access to that.
I'm just checking your Yeah, I've got it here. So if I go to your profile via my mobile, I'm able to see that little sound thing there. So it is possible. Although with LinkedIn, I have to say it is very frustrating that they're typically behind when it comes to mobile and desktop. So Stephen just mentioned there that he's liking the stuff, but we may want to slow down a little bit so he can take notes.
I've
But
got,
Alex,
we can put the links to my YouTube channel. I've got lots of short how-to videos around all of this, which you can you can go. So all I see there is the microphone wires is add. That's it. Name pronunciation. That's exactly it.
yeah.
So it's designed for people with complicated names to pronounce, but then people now use it as a way to introduce themselves.
Which has been super helpful for salespeople that are reaching out, and also for me doing these webinars as well. If I have somebody on that has a relatively complicated name, I don't like to ask them, "Hey, how do you say your name, by the way?" Because it gets a little bit awkward, you know. And you're able to just do it like that. But just another question for you, Alex. Or so a comment actually. You did mention something about having your skills section like pretty well up to date, as well as your experience section in terms of what you're doing with your current company. I think that's a really good tip, because what I'm finding and what just sort of dawned on me there when you were going through that is that not a huge amount of people at the moment are doing cold outreach, like cold calling. It feels like I'm rarely getting cold called at the moment, like very, very rarely. It's like less than once a week, I'd say, which is crazy, you know. But I think that most people have moved that approach onto online. So onto LinkedIn, for example, I get a ton of like connection requests from reps every day. Okay. And typically what I'll do is I'll go and have a look at their profile as soon as I get the request.
Yeah.
And I'll go look at their, like, what's in their profile. And if it looks like half-baked content in there and there's nothing that's really engaging for me as a prospect, then I'm just not going to add them. I ignore them, you know. That's something for me. And then Jason just mentioned, will there be a recording of this afterwards? Yes, there will be. And Stephen, I guess that Alex is going to go to Tom Boston here, who's an SDR at SalesLoft, who actually does have an awesome profile and awesome content. So here's an example of a good profile.
So Tom, you know, Tom is smashing it out of the park in terms of, if you're not following Tom, he does some very funny videos, but he's a great example of what a good profile looks like from an SDR perspective. I got others, so we got so another one, Stephen, sales weasel, sequence junkie, methodical assassin. Find them. Again, you can see the approach already. You've got character already. You've got in terms of the approach. Yes, I'm the sales weasel. Ask me why. So you know, maybe a little bit more more here, but at least this is what we do, how we work. So you can see we start to bring some personality. If I go to Justin, we want to push the extreme. So you've got Justin, for example, Elon Musk of sales training, Harper Collins. You know, let's look at our own very much. So Andy, reinventing the word alignment amongst sales and marketing, blah, blah, blah. So different process. If I do, just look at stopping and stay with Vanessa. So if I do this, we can then see this story. She gets, for those of you who know who Blue Peter is, she gets so much engagement from that. So much engagement. How did you win your Blue Peter badge? Because it was a thing 20, 30 years ago, showing our age. And so you get so much engagement from that. And then she tells a really nice story. Really nice story. Quite long, doesn't matter. If you want to be short, short. That's the point. It tells a story. On the data piece, just going back to that, what you then want to consider is how searchable you are. So on this bit, public profile settings, I have everything switched on. I want every aspect of my profile and me to be found outside of LinkedIn. So everything is there. Now this is your data, right? This is your profile. You can control as much of this. So you can switch this off. You can go as private as you like. You can go into your member settings and set your privacy stuff up. You have to remember, the more private you make yourself on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a member-first public social platform, the more it takes away from you. And if you are making yourself less discoverable versus those that are, who's more likely to appear in search, you or the competition? And in this environment, we can't, you know, meet face to face. You know, McKinsey environment is McKinsey research before Christmas is showing that they've surveyed 3,500 people. So I'll share the link afterwards with Andy. He can put it in the follow-up. And buyers are now prepared to spend 15% of the respondents said, we are happy to spend in excess of $1 million on a product or service in a virtual end-to-end quasi self-serve environment. So you've got to start thinking about, how can I be part of that journey? How can I make sure I am being part of that. In terms of the photo, just think about your first impressions, right? It's up to you. What is that first impression you want to create? If you want to have a dog in the picture, have a dog in the picture. It's around that personal brand. What is that impression that you want to create? Especially if you sell stuff that's related to dogs, then I would want a dog in my picture to show you that I care about dogs. Romantic partners, I don't believe necessarily is right, but I've had a debate with people on that, and some people say again, having a picture of them and their romantic partner starts a conversation. It's all about starting a conversation, and what we are seeing today, we are craving human interaction. Those of us that are living, certainly in the UK and Europe, we are in full lockdown. I cannot leave the house apart from going to the shop or going for a run. The last time I went to a pub was, I think, over 9 months ago. So it's this human kind of interaction, the human side of what we want to drive. That's my view.
I think it also depends on the audience that you want to chase.
Absolutely,
as well,
of course.
Alex.
Yeah.
So think about, like, if you're relatively new in terms of digitally transforming how you're doing things. Like in the past, if you had gone to a lot of events or industry-led events and did a lot of offline activity as a salesperson, think about how people would represent themselves at those events typically. So like in the tech community, people have no problem going around in hoodie and and just a zippy, which would be fine. Typically, if your buyers or the other people within the industry are also doing the same. Some industries though are more formal, and it's expected to have a formal face to it.
Yeah.
So again, think of the people that you want to attract, and think of the people that you want to interact with. I think that's the most important point there from my perspective.
Exactly. And as we've already seen, no matter what you put up there, someone's got a first impression, and it doesn't necessarily always create the first impression. You're never going to win. You're never going to please. So it's an interesting one. But that first, do my SDRs need to have that in their profile? I'm concerned that people think they are don't want to lie or bit and switch.
That they are an SDR. So my opinion on that is, having run SDRs, you don't need to say necessarily you're an SDR. What you see is quite a lot of, you also don't want to trick people as well. So yeah. I think there's two ways of doing it. Okay. And Alex, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this. But I think there's the one way where you refer to the SDR as a slightly different position. Like, for example, customer growth specialist is a type of fluffy type of title, which I see quite a bit, or you could do the route of like Tom Boston, who Alex just showed you there a couple of moments ago. And I'd recommend anybody that wants to understand how SDR should push themselves into the world in terms of how they represent themselves on social would be to look at people like Tom, or look people like there's Ben Smith from Reach Desk, who's a super junior in terms of his career, but he puts out awesome content, right? And Christine is another one.
Yeah, Christine, she's awesome.
Awesome content, and backs everything up with content. So you actually don't really care about what their position is, because the first thing that you see is the content that they have out.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're advising an SDR team on what to do, I think what you need to do is you need to tell them, look, it's all about the content that you're pushing out into the world. Add value. If you're not adding value, then you can call yourself whatever you want. But
Gabrielle's another rock star. She's an absolute legend. She's brilliant at this. At Gong, absolutely awesome in terms of how she goes about it. And that's the beauty of this, is that this is fundamentally your profile, right? And yes, okay, you need to be under the want to make sure you're not bringing the firm into disrepute in terms of anything you're saying or doing, which is most social media policies. But with regards to that, it's personality. It's bring some personality to bear in these profiles. And I hope you've kind of seen that these profiles have personality. That's what it's all about. Cool. Okay. Conscious of time, so now I'm going to just
show us those little bits about the data there that you were going to show us, Alex, just in terms of where people, like how people can make things public, because that was one of the things that you showed me before in the past. that
So,
I was like, I didn't even know that existed.
so it's here. So I'm in edit public profile on URL, which opens up this tab. So I click on that. That's here. So I have everything on, which means every aspect of my profile is searchable. You can control this, but of course, the less searchable you are, the less likely you're going to be found in search, right? But it's up to you. And then here's where, if you haven't personalized your URL, so I've got you have first name hyphen surname hyphen a bunch of numbers. Here is where you can just change that to your name, or you could put, your the industry you're in, or nickname, or whatever. So what it then looks like is that you have a personal web link in terms of that side of things. So that's that aspect. Cool. Yeah. So the next thing that we need to think about is your referral network. So if I do, I don't know, let's just do whatever your job title is that you sell to. But if I want to sell to the Andys of the world, so Chief Marketing Officer in people, and it's the secondary network, 1.25 million results, all filters. Second, let's do United States. Let's do in the IT space. Let's click show results. So I have got 6,400 potential introductions on LinkedIn to CMOs in the US in the IT space. So without a single cold call, a single cold email, a single cold outreach, in theory, I can go into my network and go, hi, Jill, how well do you know Kurt would love an introduction. This case, Michael, I look at who I know the best, all these people. Now, I do fully accept that we have connections on LinkedIn where the relationships aren't that strong. No, I haven't connected to them, haven't spoken to them, don't know them. Fully accept that. But the more connected you are, the more opportunity you have in terms of that referral network. That's why it's critical that you connect internally as organizations, internally as much as you can. The more connected an organization is internally, the more powerful your referral network can be from an introduction. And we all know that an introduction to someone is the best way to start a conversation. What that also means, if I were to share a piece of content saying, our latest research for CMOs in the IT space shows blah, my first degree network hopefully engages with it. I can potential influence a further 6,400 people who are not connected, who are only one removed from me. So it's two things. It's how many introductions can I get? Secondly, what is actually my network of potential influence? And that's what we want to think about. You want to be in the conversations with the people that you want to be having conversations with. So start thinking about your second degree network from a referral perspective, and how big is it of the people that I actually want to sell to and market to. Of course, if anybody has the gold logo next to their name, then they're paying for LinkedIn. So let's say that Jacqueline was someone I wanted to get her attention. So I click on Jacqueline's profile, come down here, see what she's up to. She's got a good featured section. I then click on see all activity. I come into her activity feed. And has she posted anything recently? So this was 3 months ago. So it would be a little bit weird for me to like or comment on that post because it's 3 months ago. But has she written any articles? Let's go here. No, she's done any documents. That's 1 year ago. So that'd be a little strange to engage, but she's active, okay? So she's liking stuff. You can start to get a sense of what she's passionate about, what she likes. So I might then choose a post to try and engage with that post if it's appropriate for me to engage with that post. But what I'm going to do is I guess this is, what's this? This is a wrap. So celebrating that they're marketing things over. I'm going to like it. Until this point, Jacqueline Woods didn't know I existed as a human being on the planet. Now she knows who I am. She's going to find it a little strange I'm engaged with a post that's 3 months old, but I actually think it's okay because it's celebrating the end of her keynote. Then what I might do, because I have premium, if she then looks back at my profile in the next what have you, I would then know that she has done that thing. So I'd then send her a connection request. Or if my profile talks to her in a way that that builds out the story, she might actually send me a connection request. This is no different to going up to a person who you don't know at a physical conference and introducing yourself. So that's how you can then start to drive in, though, just start a conversation with people. Comment, don't be disingenuous. Don't try and be clever. Obviously, the context of the post, you need to make sure that it's appropriate for you to, engage with that. So if somebody I didn't know has shared something relatively personal, but I didn't know them, I probably wouldn't engage with it because it's just not right for me to do that. But if it's business related or it's something related to a piece of research, etc., then I absolutely would engage with it to try and start that that conversation. So second degree network, then start to look in their activity, engagement, then connection request. They may even send you a connection request. Make sense? So from there, the other things to consider is around hashtags. So hashtags are, if I do hashtag marketing. So you've got to think about hashtags as the different mini conferences happening within LinkedIn. 20 million followers on this hashtag. So I then start to see different conversations happening within here. So again, I can then start to engage with Annie. So clever advert from Patagonia. I like it. I've now introduced myself to Annie. And it's how you then start to build these, little likes and comments. What we are definitely seeing at the moment is that LinkedIn is rewarding conversation, 100% rewarding comments and likes. That was even confirmed in a clubhouse I was in a couple of weeks ago with Daniel Roth, who's the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn, saying that LinkedIn groups are dead at the moment, but they recognize that and they're trying to fix it. Conversation is where LinkedIn wants to take it. And they're also now starting to look at the value of the conversation. So they're trying to combat the vanity metrics and the vanity approach that people that are chasing the likes, and it's now more the quality of the engagement of the conversation rather than just getting hundreds and thousands of likes for the sake of it. So that's how you then, down here have all the different hashtags that I'm following, different conversations that I'm engaging in. If you click on discover more, LinkedIn will start to suggest different hashtags that you can follow. There's all sorts of interesting stuff down here. So go and find the conversations that you want to be a part of. It can be all sorts of personal stuff as well as work-related stuff. And go and start engaging with that audience. Go and start to engage with that conversation, because that will then start to draw you into the field of view of the audience that you want to be marketing or selling to. So dip in and out. It could even be it's worth spending maybe 20 minutes a day in some hashtags and just commenting and liking on people's posts, because the more that you do that, the more that will start to tell the algorithm that I'm interested in this type of stuff versus the stuff that I'm not interested, and start to draw more people in the conversation. Do you recommend anything different tone-wise if your industry is very serious? I do a lot of work in the legal sector, with a lot of work with lawyers and accountants and heavily regulated stuff. If you'd be comfortable to say that thing on stage in front of somebody, then it's okay to put it on there, is my view. That's the way that you need to be cognizant of, as Andy was saying, your audience. But I've seen lawyers out there. So if I go to this barrister, where is he? So he's a barrister, and he does a lot of stuff. He's passionate about food and cocktails. So you can see here, he's a barrister, right? He's in the legal industry, and happy Chinese New Year. Putting stuff out there, commenting, engaging. Where is his stuff? Cat cartoon. I want to go on to his posts. What he does very well is where is cocktails? Here we go. So he then talks about the novels, then he gives cocktail recipes. This is a barrister. So if a barrister is able to be not so serious and add a bit of personality, and this is the thing, it's personality, and he starts to create a community around cocktails. Like I do my hashtag Ask Alex every Friday and dress up as pirates and jump into paddling pools and appear topless when I can go on summer holidays. So do what you feel comfortable with, but it's around that kind of personality that you want to bring to life. Jennifer, I hope that answers your question.
I think you want to add as well, by the way, that Alex, I think you mentioned that in passing there, but if you follow Alex or follow his hashtag Ask Alex, you'll see that Alex puts out videos on a weekly basis every Friday. And if you're lucky, you'll see him dress up as a pirate and different things like that. So I think as long as my opinion on this, that at the end of the day, and Alex sort of touched on this, you're selling to other people, right? If you're respectful of topics generally, if you're not, as long as it's you're not going to the dark side of humor or something like that, but if you're humorous and you're lighthearted and you're offering some form of value along with that, people will generally be interested in it and engage with it. I think at the end of the day, and I think really what's happened in the past year as well, is that we're seeing like a change in the way that people interact online, right?
Yeah.
And I feel as though that because there's so much information out there and so much pitching and so much like, content, let's call it content generally, that if your content doesn't really stand out, like if there's not something different or unique about it or original about it or creative about it, I don't think it's going to do very well. And that's regardless of what industry you're in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be super serious just to get onto Jennifer's point there. I don't think it needs to be super serious, but it has to offer some value to the audience in which you're shipping it to. So if you're able to, first of all, capture their attention based on some form or level of creativity, pair that with something actionable that they can go and take away from whatever you're pushing out to the world. Don't just push out how you're feeling today. Nobody cares, right? Like that's that's not for LinkedIn. That's maybe Facebook or something else, right? But if there's something that you're able to offer from a valuable information perspective, then that's typically what performs and does well. And it doesn't have to be super serious, even if you're in a serious space.
Not at all, Stephen. So in my view, I try and get them out of LinkedIn as quickly as possible. And again, it's around thinking about what the outreach is. So don't pitch. Absolutely don't pitch. Don't ask for 15 minutes of can I grab 15 minutes for your time. Don't automatically send a Calendly invite. That really pisses me off because that's making an assumption that I'm happy to do it. It's all around the tone and approach that you would take, and then I want to get your view on something. I want to share some interesting insight that I think you will find valuable. But that's why I say if you can get a referral, that's the best way in to start that conversation. So unfortunately, there isn't a kind of hit and miss rule. I said Justin Michael, who I shared earlier, it's well worth following him. He's got some really good hints and tips in terms of the types of what he refers to as spear emails, little spear messages you can use to kind of start those conversations once that conversation, that connection has made.
So like Stephen's question there was just, by the way, because it was just to the panelists, if he's looking at a prospect as a customer, like thinking, oh, I need to reach out or I need to go with my pitch very quickly because I'm afraid of missing the opportunity, right? He's asking the question, should he take it to another channel to offer that pitch? For me, like the quickest way for you to, like the world record breaking speeds of making a connection request and then losing it, you'll see with me, right? This is what happens, okay? I get a LinkedIn connection request from a salesperson. Now I'm in the space whereby I'm followed by a lot of salespeople on LinkedIn, as well as marketers. Leadfeeder is a technology which is good for both marketers and sales. And I'm also interested in being pitched to. I think it's interesting, right? However, a pet peeve of mine, connection request, 30 seconds later, receive an in-mail with a 3-paragraph long pitch about their product, right? First of all, no thought has gone into that. Second of all, they haven't even looked at my profile in any type of detail. Third of all, they haven't put any effort in, like no effort. So what I would expect would be, like salesperson adds me on LinkedIn, start interacting with my content, as Alex put before, go and start liking some of my posts. Maybe even do that before you add me as a connection, right? Start going and commenting on some of the posts that I've been pushing out. Understand my needs, understand what's important to me. Build a relationship over time. Like I think the thing with social media is that we get this sort of instant need to be like, oh, we can pitch now because we can, right? I think it's like, because that person's sitting there in front of me, I need to be able to throw it in their face immediately, because maybe it might stick. 99.9% of the times out of 100, it's not going to stick and it's not going to work. The only time it will ever stick is if somebody is somehow in a dire need of the product that you're selling at that specific moment in time. And that is very, very rare. So just to touch on Stephen's point there, like, I think create the value on LinkedIn, create a connection over time, and then you can look to pitch through other means then afterwards, I think.
But I think in terms of, it's around relevance. Yeah. There's the big debate of kind of personalization at scale and relevance at scale. Personalization at scale is tricky and time consuming, but relevance, you should know that, let's take Andy as a CMO, other CMOs around the world are going to have a similar, they'll have a similar problem, right? Whatever that problem is that your product solves. So it's being about relevant to your intended audience, that, yeah, you understand me and you understand that that is typically a problem that, yes, I face, or a challenge that I have. Then it's like, how do you create it so that your solution service is relevant to that problem and what it can do to fix? And typically, this kind of, my view is three things: save money, make money, save time. It's kind of what it boils down to, right? At the moment, I don't have enough time to do something. It's costing me too much money. Or can it save me money? Or can it help me make more money in terms of that type of thing? That is relevant. Yes, if you want to drop in, I saw you won an award at XYZ. Okay, awesome. But the problem is, so many people saw, I saw you won an award of this, that. Yeah, okay, and thank you that you've noticed, but I know I can see through why you're doing that. It's the relevance of the challenge or the problem that you're trying to solve for that audience, that job title, that ideal customer profile. I don't drink coffee at all, actually. I don't drink coffee at all. I drink decaf tea as well. I'm just a bit hyper, and I just operate at this when I'm online, because it's all about me, right? I am, but thank you, James. I do appreciate that. I'm conscious of time. I just want to dive into kind of the data bit, and then we can riff, Andy. And I can probably delay my 5 o'clock by 5 minutes or so. I'll ping her a WhatsApp when you're chatting. So the next thing is, this is all well and good, but is it actually working? So the key things, if you're going to post on LinkedIn, I'm now posting at 1 a day, probably too much. I think probably 2 or 3 times a week is where we're at. So I've got 1,675 views of this post. Okay, so what? What I want to know is that post landing in the right fish pond? So this is primarily my audience is professional services. So yes, this post is going through the eyeballs of people that I want to see me. I don't know who, but it's around that being consistently present and visible. So if you're sharing content and just chasing the views and the likes, there's no point. There is no point. It's around the quality of the engagement and the audience. So what it wants to be, the right companies from an industry perspective and size, I guess, that you're going to sell to, then the right type of job title that you are going to sell to, then you know your brand, personal and company brand, with obviously the headline, is landing in front of the eyeballs of the right people. As I said, if you then have LinkedIn Premium, it's then tying that to who's viewed your profile, because then if you've got the wrong people viewing your profile, then you need to do something about it, rather than looking at the profile going, oh, that's great, they've looked at my profile, but you're doing nothing with it. If somebody, and this changes every day in terms of what is out there, if somebody interesting that I'm not connected to, but has taken the time to look at my profile, I will then send them a connection request saying, you looked at my profile, thanks for taking the time. It would be great to have you as part of my network. They've signaled some form of intent to look at your profile. So build on that. But if you just sit there going, well, that's nice, and don't change your behaviors based on the data that you're seeing, then it's all for nothing. So that's what you now need to start thinking about: is, am I landing in the right place of where I want to be? Andy.
Yeah, that's a very good point, man. And I think it brings us forward to a little bit to like talking about the the future a little bit, and just about like how you can use that data paired with other tools. So I'm going to give Leadfeeder a bit of a shout out here, but as one tool that you can use in that. But if you're seeing in Leadfeeder that somebody is visiting your website and looking at XYZ, or a company has been visiting your website, you're able to see what pages they've been looking at, how long they've been on the site for, where they came from, etc. Pair that with some of the stuff that you're seeing on LinkedIn. So are people from that company following your LinkedIn profile, or are you following your LinkedIn page, your company page? Have people from that specific company been visiting your LinkedIn profile? I think probably what you can start to do is pair together that information. So, 100%. I think for a long time, there was a lot of talk about quantity in terms of outreach from a sales perspective. I think as we move forward, the quantity will always play a role, but I think it's really moving more towards the quality side of things. And the quality can really be based off the data that you're able to get. And obviously the more you can invest in terms of budget and different things to get as much of that data paired together and matched together into one repository, let's say one specific space where you're able to make some decisions, automated decisions based off that data, then better. But I think to start off, to be able to take the tools that are at your disposal that aren't expensive and that you maybe are even getting for free, right? And understand like what companies and what people are interacting with the stuff that I'm pushing out into the world, or that my company's pushing out into the world. Use that to go and do your outreach as a salesperson. Like, because otherwise you're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping for it to stick. But if you can see that there's been interaction, that intent data that we spoke about before, like there's some intent because they clearly know your brand if they've been on your site, and they like your LinkedIn profile or your company profile, and then they're also maybe visiting your own profile, your personal profile. Then there's some intent there. Now, whether that's strong intent or weak intent, you're gonna have to figure that out over the phone, but you're not going in completely cold. I'd even argue that's better than getting somebody that's downloaded an ebook or something.
Yeah.
But, there's been a question come in from Michael here. Curious to hear your thoughts on using a video message platform. So using a short video as an intro along with a LinkedIn invite or in a LinkedIn message. We spoke about this last week with, we were in a clubhouse. I don't know if you were in there, Alex, with Michael Hansen and Declan and a couple of others. And actually, what we did recognize, and everybody agreed, that video is fine, but actually voice notes are working better. Yeah. I don't know if you're seeing that, Alex.
I've tried them. You can only record a 60-second voice note, which is annoying, but that gets your elevator pitch down. But again, I think voice is just, you can hear the voice. And when you hear I did a podcast with Jerry Hill yesterday from Connect and Sell, and what he was saying around the amount of data that a brain can process. And your voice is the most data-rich medium in terms of tonality, sound, because obviously in the written words, you can't get sarcasm. You can't get the sense and the tone, whereas voice, you can get the sense and the tone. You're up, down, excited, not excited, sad, blue, all this kind of stuff. You can't get that unless you're an amazing copywriter, which very few of us are. You can't get that sense of tone across in the written words. So yeah, voice notes, absolutely. Just experiment, just play with stuff and see what's what. In terms of video, yeah, I'm seeing people having really great success with video. Because in terms of what's the one, not Zoom, not Drift, what's the Loom? I think Loom is one of the ones out there.
Vidyard, Hippo Video.
Yeah, I mean there are loads out there. Video is, but don't do video for video's sake, because if video takes time and effort, and it takes a bit of confidence as well. If I look back at some of my earlier videos, when I started, I was like, oh my god, they're just god awful. But I've been on a journey to where they are now. Stephen, in terms of your question around personal to what, don't be disingenuous. So if somebody looks at my profile and sees that I'm a parent, and then ask how's it going about being a parent, and they're not a parent, that for me would be a little weird, because you can't relate to me as a parent in the current situation that I'm in. But to someone else making comments about me going to a second-rate school, Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I don't know them. I don't know that person at all, but they picked up on it and they made a joke that they know will resonate with me. So already I like them, even though they actually went to a second-rate school, not me. So you've got to. It's about being just as you would do it in a normal conversation. We overcomplicate this. We overthink this stuff. Just try and be human. Just don't be disingenuous, because if you're trying to be too clever and too cute, you'll be found out, and then it just makes it 10 times worse. What would your first message when your prospect accepts your connection request? I mean, how would you start, or what would you be the right way to? I think, Andy, we probably need to have a whole new webinar on this, because I'm conscious where it's
We're
high.
at the hour. I could probably answer that question quickly. Like, so the question is, what would be your first message when a prospect accepts your connection request? I mean, how would you start? Again, I think it's about building a relationship. So you could mention about the content that you've seen that they've been producing. You like it. Like, people like to get compliments. Like, you know, it's simple. You know, like if you're complimentary about what they're doing on LinkedIn, then it's likely that they'll react to it or give you a thumbs up or whatever. But don't be expecting to be a long conversation coming off the back of that. I think it's just more or less something that you could try. But just before we wrap up, Alex, there was one question just around the Gmail LinkedIn extension.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
So if Chris, maybe just to add Alex on LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'd be happy to share it. Guys, as well, yeah, again, if you want to get either myself or Alex on LinkedIn, you'll get me at Andy Culligan on LinkedIn, and Alexander Lowe posted the both of the links there into the chat earlier on. Please feel free to connect. Alex, it's been a pleasure again, mate, having you on.
It's always a roller coaster.
Absolutely. I need to sit down after that, mate. But
I have to answer Sophie's question. I have the Kamado Big Joe 3, because my wife very stupidly asked me last summer for my birthday if I could have any barbecue that I wanted, what would it be? And I went, this one. So she then had to, but I literally cooking in barbecue. I mean, I'll be doing barbecue this weekend. I'm addicted. So the Kamado Joe Big Joe 3 is a beast. It's awesome.
Sophie, which company are
Which
you
company
working
do you
with?
work for then? Don't say Big Green Egg or Weber.
Weber. I've got a Weber.
I've got a Weber.
I grill all year round.
I started out, Sophie, on the Weber. I've got the 57 centimeter one, so that's where I started out. But I wanted to go ceramic. I know Weber have brought out their one on that. So yeah. So I've got a Weber. We can.
Sophie, maybe we can connect on LinkedIn, and we can maybe talk about some free stuff that we could potentially be getting from Weber. So I've got a Genesis, so I'm super happy with it. So give me some free stuff. That'd be great.
Oh, you're a gasser. Go away.
My LinkedIn, by the way, is Andy Culligan. So Culligan. I'll post it in here. There you go. Okay, guys. Thank you so much again, Alex. Thank you to everybody for interacting. It's been really great. And look, we have another one of these coming up in the next couple of weeks again. You'll get more information per email. This will also, the recording of this session will also be sent out via email in the next day. So guys, it's been a great hour or so. And Alex, have a great rest of the day, mate.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much.
Take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks. Bye.